Hello and welcome to another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancey Street. Today is Friday, March 26, 2021, and we are doing episode 10B of the podcast today. Before we start off, I do have to mention I am recording in a different location than I normally am. Once again, I'm a little bit closer to an airport, a lot closer to an airport than I normally would be. Hopefully I will be able to edit out any of those disturbances. However, if I cannot, I apologize. If that becomes a bit of a disruption, I will do the best that I can to work with it and just be fluid. So, for this week's episode, we will be covering comic book picks and the noteworthy moments from this week's pull list, my personal pull list. After that, we'll be going into some TV things with Superman and Lois episode 5, which premiered, I believe, on Tuesday, and was a pretty big episode, so we'll cover all of that. Well, then after the current stuff, we have some news, which includes Black Adam casting news, Zatanna movie news, Disney/Marvel premiere updates, which I'm sure everyone has heard the drama about by now, and then finally Marvel Comics distribution news, which I, being a gigantic nerd, found very interesting. And I don't know if you will as well, but I have done a little bit of research on the situation, and I will report all of that to you. Today is, like I said, Friday the 26th. There are some things premiering today that are really exciting. I will not be covering them in this episode. I will be covering them in the Monday the 29th episode. That will be our last episode of March. And those things include Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2, which has premiered already on Disney+. I have not watched it myself because I wait until my husband gets home from work in the evening and we watch it together. So I'll be covering that, like I said, on Monday's episode 11A, alongside the Suicide Squad trailer. James Gunn's Suicide Squad trailer is supposed to be dropping sometime today. I would guess, I'm West Coast, I would guess sometime around noonish, if not after. I will be done recording this long before then. So I will cover that if it becomes something that I feel is interesting enough to write. I imagine it will be. We'll be covering that on Monday as well, alongside that episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So let's go ahead and get started with our comic book discussion. The comic books that I will be discussing today are in no particular order of favoritism. This is the order that I read them in, so this is the order that we're going to be talking about them in. And that includes Batman Black and White number 4, which is an anthology comic, so it contains 5 stories specifically, by different creative teams that are all not connected. It just involves Batman, and they're all drawn in black and white, hence Batman Black and White. Normally with anthology comics, I don't particularly, I normally buy them for 1 or 2 of the stories within the anthology, not really loving the entire thing. However, all 5 stories of this one I did love, so we're going to talk about all 5 of those in various lengths and depths. So then we have Cable number 9, which is of course going to be of 12 issues, unfortunately. Harley Quinn number 1, the premiere issue of this new ongoing Harley Quinn series. Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn number 6, which is the 6th of 6 issues for this Murphyverse series. And finally, King in Black Scream number 1, which will be the it's just the Scream one-shot that happens. I just had to stop for a second because it looks like the Suicide Squad trailer, as I'm recording this, just premiered, so I will actually probably talk about that in this episode. We'll go ahead and tack that on to this. I'm not super familiar with these characters, but I'll give you my reaction to it, and then possibly we'll talk about it in more depth on Monday, because I just got that texted to me as I'm recording this. How fun is that? I guess I was wrong about it being in the afternoon. Anyway, we still have a lot of stuff to talk about, so I will watch that later on, and let's go ahead and, before I finish recording this, of course, and then I can give you my reaction, but meanwhile, let's go ahead and jump into our comic book discussion this week, starting with Batman Black and White number 4, which, like I said, is an anthology comic containing 5 different stories, all of which I greatly enjoyed, be it because of the creative team or because of the content of the story, or both. So let's go ahead and start with the first issue of that. Well, the first story of that. And that is, I'm not going to be talking about these in order, to be fair. These are just, I really loved the Chip Zdarsky one, so we're going to talk about that first, okay? That's what it is. The Chip Zdarsky story was alongside shoot, I didn't write the artist down, but it was fantastic. It was about Ivy and Batman, basically. And what I loved about it was she was drawn like her modern self, first of all, but she was characterized without knowledge of Batman's identity. I actually had trouble, I can't really remember if that's canon right now. If she doesn't know Batman's identity. I thought she did because of the whole wedding thing, but I don't know. Well, I could be wrong. But anyway, this is just some fun little story. Doesn't have to be canon. But she's making a plea to Batman, basically to have Bruce Wayne do good things for the environment with his money, because she has this plant that she wants to, basically, she says, put across the world, and they can't kill it and it'll save the world and blah blah. But Batman, he writes Batman smart enough to see through all of this, all of her pleas and everything, and he writes Ivy evil enough and smart enough to trick him into using her new plant to cover Gotham when it would actually maim and kill people. That's really more along the lines of who she is anyway. I never liked this whole Ivy is a hero crap that people started putting on her a few years ago because she started teaming up with Harley and Harley wanted to be a hero. Ivy's not a hero. She wants plants to cover the earth and humans to die, not just people to be more environmentally friendly. It's not that. She is fully anti-human. She doesn't see a universe possible where the green and humanity can coexist. So yeah, she's a villain. She sides in a universe where, well, she sides in for a universe that has no humanity in it, that just has plants and, natural animals and whatever, non-human animals. So that was really cool. Basically just ends like that. He discovers her whole thing and calls her out for it, and she gets pissed off, and I imagine he throws her in jail or something. Really, really great story. Second story here is the story of Maps as Robin. It was her first time. She is a character from Gotham Academy. I cannot remember what her last name is, but it starts with an M. It's like Mizuki or something like that. I definitely said it wrong, but it's her name. Her name is Maps. That's what they call her. It's her nickname. And this is her first story as Robin. It was done by one person. His name is Carl Kerschel. And this was a really surprisingly cute story. Obviously, Maps is a cute-ass character, but I did not expect it to kind of be so much in the story. It was really nice. He did a great job of showing her enthusiasm for crime busting and investigation while Batman was dealing with whatever it was that was going on in the house that they were in, which is inhabited by a lady who apparently believes that Batman is a spirit, or something like that, demon of some kind. So that was a fun take, to see crazy people reacting to him that way. And meanwhile, there's Maps bopping around in the background doing cool science investigation stuff. So really fun. I don't know if we're going to be seeing Maps as Robin in the future. I imagine so, but it's kind of like we just saw Tim Fox's Batman in the future, but we're not seeing that really being set up, so I don't know. I would love to see this little Maps character as more full-time Robin, I guess. Batman does have a habit of destroying his sidekicks, so hopefully that wouldn't happen. We could kind of break that mold. But this was a fun enough story that I am fully into. If we see more of Maps Robin, I am totally here for it. Which isn't to say that there's anything to have against the character. I just simply wasn't familiar with the character. This is my first experience reading them, so I am here for it. The next story, number 3, is I'm talking about Joshua Williamson and Riley Rossmo's story, which is again one that really surprised me. It was actually really, really awesome about, it was all about how this new villain, I don't remember his name is, he steals, or I guess catches, wild bats for the rich and elite of Gotham to use as pets, or at least try to. As Barbara Gordon points out, bats don't live very long in captivity, usually, which was kind of a dark note of conservatism, conservation. You know what I'm trying to say, I just can't get it to come out right. Batman has made it his goal in this story to free all of these captive bats that this villain is taking, and he goes and has a light conservation-style discussion on it in the Batcave with the other Bat family members. Barbara, I think Dick's there, Damien's there, Not sure who else is there, but it was a couple of Bat family members. Is really sweet. And he does make the distinction that he is not like those elite and wealthy collectors, because while he houses the bats, he lets them come and go as they please and doesn't hold any ownership in them, because the cave is just their natural place and he happens to own the cave, but he doesn't own the bats. That's, his more symbiotic relationship with the bats than these rich and elite. And that's kind of that's the story. That's it. It's just, he goes off, he gets the bat back from the dude, he brings it back to the cave and releases it, has a short little discussion with the kids, or young adults, whatever they are at this point. And that's it. It's really sweet. I liked it a lot. Joshua Williamson is a writer who was on Flash for a very long time, and I just did not care at all about that. And with recent moves, starting, as far as I can tell, with Future State, he did Future State Justice League, and he's done a couple of things since then. I've really, really enjoyed what I've been picking up from Joshua Williamson. It's very surprising. And Riley Rossmo is, of course, the new artist on the new Harley Quinn series, which I will be talking about in just a little bit. His art style is, of course, extreme. The kind of art style that usually has to fit along a certain kind of storyline for it to kind of jam with the story. So I was really surprised by this. These two continue to impress me as they go and start doing more and more things with their comics career, specifically at DC, it seems. But I really enjoyed the story. Joshua Williamson and Riley Rossmo touching on conservation and bats and pets and things, so that was kind of nice. The next story is number 4, Becky Cloonan and the Dodsons. That's Terry Dodson is a penciler, and Rachel Dodson is the inker. They're also married, so it's a fun little comic book couple thing. And Becky Cloonan, I believe, writes with her partner Michael Conrad. I don't know if they're romantic partners or if they're just like career partners, but they do stuff together. But this was just her and just the Dodsons, and it was in black and white, so there was no colorist. So the story was basically Batman investigating a crime at Haley's Circus, of all places, which of course is where he picks up Dick Grayson from after his parents, I guess you'd say leaders of the Flying Graysons, were murdered. Technically, it's a long story. You probably know the story anyway. So it seemingly takes place years before the Grayson parents are killed, and then after that, Dick Grayson moves to live in with Bruce. So it was a cool little addition to their history together, possibly adding in some reasoning as to why Bruce was so gung-ho as to taking in this orphaned boy. Yes, of course, he was orphaned similarly-ish, but this adds a little bit more of a connection to their past, and to him and the Haleys. Doesn't make it quite so random that he's, oh yeah, I'm going to choose this random orphan boy. Whatever weirdness, it kind of smooths that out. And it was really cute. The Dodsons obviously have gorgeous art always, so really nice to look at that. And finally, a completely different art style. We have a story written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson, who his arts, he did Wonder Woman Dead Earth, if you're familiar with that story. One of my absolute favorite all-time Wonder Woman stories, although it's not canon, as all of my all-time favorite Wonder Woman stories are not canon. Daniel Warren Johnson is another one of those, like Riley Rossmo, artists whose style only fits a certain type of story, and that style of story is hardcore. If you're not familiar with his art, I recommend you looking it up. He does some comic book variants, also that are hardcore, it's his whole thing. And I think he actually plays metal on his guitar too, if I'm not mistaken. So it all fits his persona very well. But his story, it was a very metal story about Batman kicking absolute ass while thinking back to gentle lessons from Alfred. So a nice little duality in the plot there. And the story ended with a surprisingly tear-jerking look at the empty Wayne drawing room, sans Alfred, because of course we all know Alfred died some years ago. Tom King finally let him go to his peace, just like somebody needs to let Aunt May please let her die and go and have her rest. This woman is like 100, and she's been through so much. But yes, Daniel Warren Johnson's story, again, another really enjoyable one. I really was surprised once again. I know I've been surprised in so many things with this Batman Black and White thing. These issues continue to be great. There's a couple of other of these color ones. They have, Superman Red and Blue. They have also Wonder Woman Black and Gold, who I don't think I've checked out their creative teams. I think Becky Cloonan is actually writing and drawing one story in that one. But the Red and Blue, there's not too many, teams I'm not interested in. Like, Marvel's doing the Carnage, Red, White, and Blood, or Black, White, and Blood, whatever it is. It's, the teams don't seem so great, but this Batman Black and White series, this one seems to be getting some stellar creative teams, and they are putting out some excellent work. So, all in all, I guess it can't be too surprising that I did enjoy every single one of these stories, as each of these 4 issues going forward I have liked to some extent. They just seem to be knocking it out of the park with these anthologies at DC these days. But it's time to move on. Next up on the comic book pick list, I want to talk about Cable number 9, because I am furious that this is ending. It's only going to be 12 issues. I believe the 12th issue is coming out as the kind of wrap-up to the Hellfire Gala mini event that's happening in the X-Men this June, I want to say. I'm mad this is ending. It's fantastic. Gary Duggan alongside artist Phil Noto, who does all of his own interiors. It's beautiful. Gary Duggan has an excellent grasp of these characters. He clearly enjoys writing them. I hope to see, more of both of these in Reign of X in the future. So in this issue, Cable is basically looking for Strife, because Strife is doing something sinister, not to reference Mr. Sinister, but something sinister with mutant babies. Potentially Sinister could be involved, because it's involving, clone-looking things, potentially. We don't really know. So he has Magic go to Limbo. She brings him to Limbo with her, and check on her demon guys, who are eternally torturing, his name is Nestri or something like that. He's the demon. It's really fun. It was stupendously funny to see, as a big fan of Magic, to see him there, and being aware of her history and everything, and also being a big fan of Madeline Pryor, whose history in life is oddly tied in with that of Ilyana Rasputin's Magic, because of their whole core thing, Goblin Queen, and the Limbo lady. Okay, you get it. And this character, Nasir, I'm going to call him that because I don't know how to pronounce it. He was involved heavily with Madeline's origin, and he was involved also with Magic, and her history, we'll say. She has a complicated history. So that's pretty cool to have seen him there. We get to see Magic here as the now longtime ruler of Limbo, of course, talking casually to her demon friends around the place, who she knows all by name, which is awesome. And she refers to herself to Cable as the landlord, cop, and Beyonce of this place. By this place, she means Limbo, which is awesome, basically saying, I know everything that I am, basically this place is God, I know everything that's happening here, and it's... they can't do anything I don't want them to do, basically. Which I really hope is accurate. I hope they're not about to pull one out from under us and say, she's not the ruler of Limbo. That would suck. Honestly, that would suck. She's had a great arc from Hickman's, past couple of years, but mostly Hickman's thing, kind of embracing the demon side of her, as it doesn't have to be bad. It can be used for good, and she can still rule Limbo and not be a villain. She doesn't have to be evil just because she rules Limbo, and I really love that. Character arcs, nice. Anyway, I would kill to see somebody, maybe Duggan, write a couple issues about Magic doing this kind of ruling limbo stuff that she does nowadays. He clearly enjoys her. He writes her in, or at least was writing her in Secret Avengers as well. So I would love to see more of Magic. I know she had kind of her own event or her own series that she kind of was the main character, one of the main characters in, alongside Monet and Angel, I guess you could say. And that was the Empire X-Men tie-in, 4 issues. Fantastic, showcased some stupendous Dawn of X creators, including writers and artists, and it had one of my favorite Magic arcs, story arcs for her character, for Ileana Rasputin, that I have ever read. So if you're a fan of her, definitely check that out as well. And definitely check out Secret Avengers and Cable. I don't read Secret Avengers, but my husband is always ready to tell me about what part she's in it. I just am so far behind on it at this point. And I'm telling you to read it. But anyway, really loved what they're doing with Cable. Of course, Phil Noto he does all of the interiors and coloring and inking, which is honestly probably what makes his interiors so stupendous. And the issue basically ends with young Cable coming to the conclusion that he needs to find his older self wherever in time he is. And I'm starting to think I might be right here, that the end of the series will phase out young Nathan and bring old man Cable back in. However, that could totally be them trying to make us think that, and then, old man Cable bows out at the end and says, no, this is your turn, or something. I don't know. It's cheesy, but you can always hope. And just to keep talking about Phil Noto, I guess, I really hope he remains as a Reign of X artist long after Cable finishes. I would miss the crap out of his interiors. Seriously, it's phenomenal. I think that they are some of the best in Marvel right now. If not, like, way up there, top tied with the best or something. Next up, I'm sorry if my voice keeps cracking. We have Harley Quinn #1. This was the first issue to her new series, written by Stephanie Phillips with art by Riley Rossmo, and it is off to a surprisingly good start. A lot of times Harley series will start, and I will be a lot like when a new Wonder Woman series starts, and I'll tell people, oh yeah, it was fun, we'll see where it goes. But this series, well, this first issue I should say, I really did like this. It was an excellent balance of her quirkiness and, the quirkiness of her character, I should say, without getting too overboard with all of that. Touching on her hearing voices, having stuffed animal friends, multiple personalities very mildly, etc. But not too much, and it was all very well placed when they utilized these things. Batman was with her a fair amount in the issue, which was very fun, because I guess she's still in his series, being written terribly, I imagine, the way she was when I was reading it. It was good to see them team up in a comic that wasn't making me gag by the bad writing for once, so that's great. There was some really funny jokes about Batman talking to Oracle in his earpiece, and Harley asking if he hears the voices too. And then her body language around his semi-chaotic just being Batman-ness, and his constant begrudgingness to work with her, even though he knows she's better off as an ally than a chaotic just going off and doing her own thing. It was really nice to see that relationship continuing to develop, and seeing kind of, I guess, also those funny little quirks about Batman that, yeah, in real life that would be weird to see him randomly talk to somebody in his earpiece. Just stop paying attention to your conversation and just walk away and talk to somebody who's not there. It would be weird, and it would be weird to have to constantly dodge around his, throwing of things and kickboxing randomly. It's just, it would be a little bit funny, and I'm glad that they kind of touched on all of that. The dynamic was very, very good, very, very well done, I think. There was only the tiniest mention of Ivy when Harley is showing Bats her investigation wall, which I guess was for her to figure out which villains want her dead, possibly? I'm not really clear on that yet. There's headshots and notes about the various Gotham villains, but notably not one for Ivy, and Batman points out a manila envelope in the center that just says Pam in red, and when he goes to see what's inside, Harley stops him, saying that she isn't ready to face that one yet. So my thoughts on this is basically, it must be after that scene in Batman Urban Legends #1, which was the Stephanie Phillips, Laura Braga story about Harley and Ivy kind of being on again, off and again romantic and having kind of broken up now, sort of. We don't really know yet. But it basically just confirmed their romantic history, and that Ivy left after burning down their hideout. Harley must have, curled up inside and come here. To whatever this apartment is. I have no idea what the Clown Hunter battle that this issue referenced is, and honestly, I have no desire to find out. Clown Hunter is a racist depiction of an Asian character. It can stay the hell away from me. It's the only character speaking with a broken accent, and he happens to be the only Asian character in there, so that really doesn't look good, and nobody seems to give a shit, so DC's full of crap about there. We're gonna look out for Asian representation, because they don't. Anyway... I guess this is where Harley has shacked up since she and Ivy had their breakup and Ivy burned down their hideout, and it looks like she's kind of playing ostrich about the situation for now, just pretending that it isn't a problem and then nothing's wrong and that it'll fix itself, sticking her head in the dirt. I guess this tease makes me think that yes, Ivy will appear, but definitely if she does, not until much, much later in the series, and I don't know to what extent. Harley is appearing in Batman, apparently, still, and Ivy is appearing in, a couple of different things, Swamp Thing and Catwoman, so, which are written actually by the same person, so I don't know, is Stephanie Phillips pulling Ivy in a different direction, or trying to pull Ivy in a different direction than Ram V is in his books? I hope not. I would hope that DC continuity would be a little, or editorial would be a little bit better than that, but genuinely, who knows? Sometimes I wonder. So yeah, I'm not just reading this series to see Ivy. I really am genuinely impressed with how good of a first issue this is for Harley Quinn. People tend to overdo it with their first issues, and you tend to end up going, yeah, it was good, we'll see how it goes, and not really reading the second issue. This one, I definitely will be getting the second issue. I'm excited to see what of these elements are going to be continue to play in the series, and what is going to be kind of more or less her goal for this series. I don't really know what her whole thing is yet. This is definitely an intro. We don't really have a plot yet. So I'm very interested in finding out what that plot is going to be for this series, and how much. Yes, I am curious how much Ivy's going to be involved. Okay. Next up, Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn #6, which was the final issue of this series. I took some notes as I was reading it, because there were some things that was really nice to come across and notice, such as the coloring of her noir suit, which is the one that Batman gives her, which I think I will touch on later on. The coloring is black and gray, but it's interesting, the colorist, whose name is Dave Stewart, he made it so that the darkest shades of the gray portion of the suit are tinged with red, which was really, really a neat tool, to not just have it be completely black and white. It's still like you have that undertone of red when it doesn't have light shining on it. So I was really neat. I don't really know how to explain that with the fabric, but it was just a neat tool as a reminder. This is normally the red portion of her suit. They just kind of toned down. They made it grayscale, basically, was what they did that. And they're calling it the noir suit, which is really great. And it was made by Batman, given to Harley, because of course he got a crush on her. The mallet is hilarious. He gives her a little mallet, and it's like this tiny little thing, and she presses a button, and it goes out to probably 3 or 4 feet. It goes, and extends like a tripod, kind of. And the mallet end of it goes from being just this tiny little, cylinder at the end. It pops off these little, what I imagine are some kind of pressure or something, sound distortion thing, so that when they hit somebody, they hit a lot harder than the force she's actually hitting with. But she fights the villain in this, a little bit with the hammer. She doesn't actually use the hammer that much. I think she hits her with it once, and that's it. But otherwise, she just kind of uses it for self-defense, blocking things for the most part. But it was really hilarious to see that Batman made her a themed weapon. Of course he would. That's his thing. He's Bat-themed. She's hammer themed? I don't honestly know where I was going with that. I also love how the art made the coloring look like Starlet, who is of course the villain, It kind of made her look like she was a different medium in their world, similarly to how a 2D character would look in a 3D world and vice versa. She stood out so much with the black and white coloring of her that it actually ended up looking like she was kind of placed in to their world separately, which was I don't know if it was on purpose or anything, but it was a really cool look that it ended up with. Another detail about Harley Quinn's outfit, of course, her hyena Lou unfortunately sacrifices itself to save one of her kids in the last issue after Starlet attacks Harley's house and tries to burn it down. Well, I think she does burn it down. And so now, instead of wearing the red collar, dog collar with a J for Joker on it, or Mr. J, Harley now wears a dog collar with an L for Lou. Oh, that's so sweet! I was still pretty crushed that one of the hyenas had to die, but she still got Bud, so at least there's that. And I guess in this world, as he did escape in the last issue, or the last issues, I guess Batman is officially a fugitive in hiding, so he gifts Harley with what appears to be the downtown Wayne house, Bat Garage included. The story ends with Harley, her kids, and Bud the hyena sitting in the Batcave, and Harley is basically swearing to do good by Bruce, as well as, you can imagine, everybody else who she's encountered in the series who's, made an impact on her life. This story, I think, swiftly and without a doubt removes Joker as ever having been a love interest. That was not Jack. It patched up her psyche about the past and how, yes, Jack was a completely separate person than the Joker, to every point. It also explains that Harley was never a villain in this world necessarily. She was always the one trying to get him to stop, trying to get Jack to come back. But Joker would never really let that happen, and so then she left him. The story makes her a mom, makes her smart, makes her full of emotion and caring and care. And now, without the weight of the Joker's past holding her down, she's free to be the hero that she was always meant to be for Gotham, that could always be. So that was really neat. I don't know what the next Murphyverse project we're going to be getting is. Sean Gordon Murphy, of course, plotted this alongside Katana Collins, romance writer, and his wife, so that's pretty cool. I would love to see more co-ops, is that what you call that? Different people coming in to work on Murphyverse projects. We had Matteo Scalera doing the art on this, who was a phenomenal choice for Murphy's character designs. And of course you have Katana Collins alongside Murphy himself writing this. And we got a product that was, I truly believe, something that we never would have gotten if this was Murphy himself working on this project. In a good way, the best way possible. So, really hoping we see more projects like this for Murphy's Murphyverse. Possibly dealing with other characters. I know he's currently working on his own project, Plot Holes, which is a Kickstarter project that I backed, I guess you would say. But hopefully whenever he's, got time, we'll see more Murphyverse, and hopefully more Harley Quinn in that Murphyverse. Finally, to wrap up my comic book pick list this week, it's all pretty positive stuff this week, so that's excellent, isn't it? We have King in Black Scream #1, which is an unfortunate one-shot only, about King in Black Scream. What am I saying? About Scream in King in Black, the event happening over at Marvel, some of Marvel right now. Interesting thing about it, though, I kind of wanted to throw this in. The character Demogoblin comes in, who is actually formerly the character Shriek. That's who this version of the character is right now. Demogoblin is, of course, a different person. That was, I want to say, Cletus Cassidy was Demogoblin at one point. But Shriek is Cletus Cassidy's, I want to say, girlfriend. And she's supposed to be showing up in Venom 2 alongside Cletus Cassidy, Carnage, whatever amount of that we see. But that the woman who is Shriek is supposed to be showing up alongside him, Cletus Cassidy. So that's really interesting that she could potentially be in the Venom movie. Not as Demogoblin, because Demogoblin, she only became Demogoblin based on what they said in this Scream issue. They had a little wrap up. I'm not super familiar with her, but she, I know the issue was, I believe it was Absolute Carnage, Lethal Protectors is when they referenced that. That's when she becomes Demogoblin, but it's, basically she tries to save, it sounds like she tries to save Cletus Cassidy and sacrifices herself, but then he ends up killing her anyway. The way that things like that do happen in comics. But I really enjoyed this one shot, and it makes me so hopeful for more Scream in the future, potentially the very near future. That's basically, what made this so cool is because you have Andy Benton as the host to Scream. She's been the host to Scream since Absolute Carnage started a couple of years ago. The writer of this, I believe his name is Clay McLeod Chapman, some combination of those three names. He writes Scream so phenomenally, I can't say the words right now. He writes her so well. I have been so superbly happy with everything that he's been putting out about it. It's dark, it's gritty, but not in a way that's like, oh god, this is just some dark and gritty comic. Because she's Scream and everything about her gives her the room to be that kind of dark and gritty comic character. And Andy Benton as well. Andy Benton has the powers of Hellfire on her. I'm not entirely sure why, but if you're familiar with Damon Hellstrom's pentacle, I guess it's a pentagram because it is upside down. Pentacle is right side up. His pentacle that he had on his chest, I'm not sure which direction it faces, but she has the same thing, and that gives her Hellfire powers. So in this one shot, we got to see Scream and Andy Benton kind of get to tie together their various power sets, because, sometimes symbiotes end up having different power sets, different abilities, right? So Scream has her ability to transform into different things, which is really neat. And in this, she is able to tie that up with Andy Benton's Hellfire powers, and together they're basically able to multiply that by a lot, and it becomes super useful in their fight here, because at first they're fighting Demogoblin, who is, like I said, formerly Shriek, Cletus Cassidy's ex. Not Demogoblin, there's a distinction. I'd be really interested in a Demogoblin action figure, Hasbro. I know you did Demogoblin, but she's the one in comics right now, so maybe do the relevant one. I'm getting off topic again. They fight. Demogoblin is basically wanting Scream to submit to Null, the god of the symbiotes. And it was a really, really cool scene when Null does finally show up in front of these two characters. Demogoblin is like, oh gosh, I can't think. Maybe you'd compare her to Deadpool in that she just won't shut up. She's going on and on about, oh my god, my lord, Null, you finally bestowed your blessing appearance upon us. Whatever crap she's saying, crazy Demogoblin chick. And she ends up, I'm sorry, there's a helicopter flying over. I apologize, but I'm on a roll here. And Noel basically ends up just telling her to shut up, puts his hand on her face, and throws her off the roof to, like, way off in the distance. Just does not care. He is not here for Demogoblin. He's here for Scream. And as he approaches Scream and Andy are going, or I guess Andy's asking Scream, why can't we fight? Why can't we defend ourselves? Why can't we move? And Scream is going, I don't know. I guess I can't fight my own god, which was such a cool moment. I love that. I thought it was so neat, kind of a similar way as Daredevil having to interact with Null, this god of the symbiotes, and how he has his whole thing with Catholicism. Really cool moments that we've gotten out of King in Black that are none of which in the main King in Black tie-ins, or the main King in Black series issues. So eventually she ends up fighting Null because Null wants to absorb her / make her his own, because she has this Hellfire power, has this light within her that he wants to make his own and utilize it for himself, or snuff it out, basically. And so they end up fighting, and that's when Andy and Scream are able for the first time, it seems, to use their powers kind of together. And in doing that, and Scream using Andy's Hellfire powers, she is able to burn Null, is able to hurt him long enough that he has to stop trying to attack her, and she can escape. And it's really interesting because the issue actually ends basically with her going, and now I know how to hurt him. Period. The end. Like, okay, well, now you know how to hurt him, so you're gonna come and you know, show up in King in Black 5 and end this? Because as far as I can tell, she's not gonna show up in King in Black 5. There's no reason, we have absolutely no reason to think that she's gonna show up there, because we have, Captain Universe, who, well, the title of Captain Universe, which of course we've now discovered is the opposite end of Null, the King of Light, where, well, the God of Light, I guess, where Null's the God of darkness. And Captain Universe has now attached itself to, I guess, technically the dead body of Eddie Brock, who was Venom for a long time, not forever. But they're gonna fight in King Black 5. That seems to be how that's gonna wrap up. But then here in Scream, this issue ends basically with like, oh, it seems that she's gonna end this and go show up at King Black 5 and save the day with her Hellfire powers. But there's literally no reason to think that aside from this one issue. And I wish there had more, I don't know, I just felt like at the beginning of this she was gonna be utilized so well, because she was utilized fairly well. Or at least brought back into existence in Absolute Carnage. And this event is ultimately the follow-up to Absolute Carnage. And her being a symbiote, one of the Life Foundation symbiotes, she's really important as far as symbiotes go in the Marvel Universe, yet she hasn't been brought into the main King in Black event. It just doesn't feel right to me that she's not being treated the way that she should be for a character of her status, I guess we could say. But that wraps up what I have to say about comics. Whether or not we see Scream in the movies ever, I doubt it. And whether or not we see Shriek as a actual villain and not just the woman in, Venom 2 coming out this fall? Who knows? I'll just spitballing here. But that's enough for comics today. We will now move on to Superman and Lois, episode 5, I think we're on now. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. But before I kind of go into that, I owe this to everybody. In looking up some things this week, I came across rumors that there was, I don't know, allegedly one of the showrunners of Superman and Lois referred to this show as the only show on the CW that handles family issues in being superheroes. Which is not accurate. That is not at all fair to say. Black Lightning is in its second or third season now, and that is a show that surrounds a black family who are superheroes. And if you've seen the ads, they've been in a lot of DC comics recently. The ads make it, oh my gosh, the ads look so cool. A friend of ours has been asking us to watch it, and we just haven't gotten around to that yet because of so much other things going on in life. But due to these comments that were apparently made by the Superman and Lois, one of the Superman and Lois showrunners, kind of referring to Black Lightning as not being in the CW superhero universe, whether or not that was the intention of those comments, I do owe it to Black Lightning to give it the same treatment as this. So we will start watching Black Lightning. I'm not sure if I'm going to be just kind of reviewing that as I go through it, or catching up with this new season that's supposed to be happening. I'm not really sure, but as it happens, I will let you know, and you all know. But I just wanted to make that note because I want to, I would like everyone, myself included, to be aware that these things do happen. Not everybody not all your favorites are non-problematic, to say the weird Tumblr thing from back in the day. I don't know if people still say that. But be aware of them. You don't have to drop something because one person involved with it said something snide or whatever. Just be aware of it, and keep an eye out for patterns like that. You know, if things start to show up, that's a lot more like, okay, now I see this happening on purpose. You know, that would be the point to, stop and address it more clearly. But I just wanted to point that out before we get into episode 5 of Superman and Lois. There's a lot that happens in this episode, so I hope that I remember to cover everything that, or touch on everything that I need to cover here. one of the best things, one of the most important things, is that the fall festival in Smallville is going to be happening soon, and Clark wants his family to go with him. The boys are not into it, obviously, being teenagers, but John decides to take his girlfriend from Metropolis because she's coming to visit, and he convinces Jordan to ask out Sarah because she's newly single, because all that crap that happened with basically all of them. I also feel like it's definitely worth noting how Clark's excitement to talk to show this all to his kids while he's talking about it is so palpable. It's so pure-hearted Clark, small town Smallville kid, you know, to be so excited about this. I know my fairly small area has a fall festival. Nothing like this. This was a little bit more carnival-esque than ours, but it's, you know, it's nice, it's fun. The kids get a kick out of it, and of course Clark would remember it as fondly as he does. One thing that's worth remembering also is throughout this episode you get a fair amount of flashbacks to Martha Kent raising young Clark. I suppose this must be after his father has already died, and she basically decides to send him off to Metropolis, although she knows that wasn't the right choice. There's a lot of discussion of, you know, whether it was right to move to Smallville from Metropolis. What's the best thing to do with the boys now that things are developing the way they are? There's a lot of that happens here, because the boys are starting to go through some more tough things. Just like John gets broken up with before this carnival. He gets a call from Eliza, his girlfriend, and she breaks up with him over the phone, doesn't give him a chance to defend himself, and basically what he says is, to his brother, is, she doesn't want to date a small town loser. So that's, you start to see John's problem here, and at one point in the episode he actually points out directly, he calls it that Smallville is his personal kryptonite. Everything in his own life has gone wrong since moving there, as the way he sees it. Honestly, I can't blame him. His football career, he was the star player, he probably would have gotten signed to, you know, NFL types, or I guess college football type stuff before his senior year of football. He was that level of football kid at Metropolis High School, but here he isn't even, he's on the bench. He is not even playing the games. And then there's also his girlfriend. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She breaks up with him because she doesn't want to date a guy from Smallville. And then his brother gets powers. His dorky brother gets powers instead of him, and ends up stealing kind of some of his friends and his popularity. So it's all kind of, life is flipped on John's head. And you get the scene, at one point, the scene with John and his friends at the carnival, when they do eventually go there, because he still goes. They were being, you know, douchey teens, but that scene was uncanny, accurate to a T, unbelievably, like, this is the kind of thing I feel like I would have walked up on this behind the high school, you know, football field, and just like, oops, didn't mean to walk up into this scene of these kids being douchey teens. Like, it was like something out of real life. It was crazy. I don't know if that's, you know, just because that's how kids were when I was that age or what, but I feel like that's something that lasts, that sticks. Kids are always like that. And he drinks. He gets really, really drunk at the carnival, which, why he thought he could face his parents drunk and not have them notice is so beyond me, and honestly probably has to do with the drinking itself. Not a good choice for John there. And then later on, John gets in a fight with his parents in front of Jordan, calling him Superboy and all this stuff. But then he tells Jordan to come with him afterwards as he storms off, and Jordan does. I'm starting to see the dynamic between them differently now, you know? It's starting to look a lot less like the traditional, or I guess traditionally cool brother helping out the traditionally loser one, and a lot more like it's just John taking advantage of Jordan's never-ending loyalty, potentially to the point of Jordan losing out on things in his own life, like the night with Sarah, because she gets pissed off at John for being an entitled asshole, which rightly so. By the way, Sarah is quickly becoming my favorite character of this show. In that scene where John and his friends are drunk and basically just being shitheads to Jordan, she walks up to him and basically says the thing that I'm sure everybody watching this wanted to be said, basically telling him, you know what, dude, your perfect family, your nice little life that you have here isn't that bad. People have actual problems, and you need to grow up. Just because your girlfriend dumped you for the first time in your life, you got dumped, and so now you're gonna go on a spiral. Like, she just calls him out on all of it, and then storms off. Of course, poor Jordan is left without his date, and later on in the episode, they decide they're not gonna date, they're just gonna be friends. We could all see that coming. She definitely just needed somebody to talk to. But I really like the character of Sarah. But anyway, Jordan seems to be, who knows what would have happened on that night if John hadn't interfered. Maybe she would have gotten closer to Jordan or something, I don't know. Or if John didn't just interfere in his brother's life so much, who knows, where he would be right now. Just letting him grow on his own instead of babying him or anything. It's just starting to look, just in this one episode so quickly, like a much less positive sibling dynamic than I had originally thought. You also get the missing guy who worked for Morgan Edge, whose mother was almost killed in a previous episode after reporting suspicion for Morgan Edge having killed her son. That son who was missing, he turns up, and we quickly discover that he was definitely experimented on by Morgan Edge and his people. He burns down a fundraiser hall on accident. They're all at because his powers are powers are out of control. Kyle the firefighter swoops in to save everybody because, he's the fire chief or whatever. And it seems that he's going to start getting suspicion of Superman. I have a feeling he's going to figure out that Clark Kent is Superman, because Clark Kent bursts in, nobody sees him, but he breathed ice, his cold breath on the fire and puts it out. But Kyle the firefighter, he actually notices the frost on the wood when he's on his way out. So I have a feeling he's going to start either piecing stuff together and have it completely the wrong way where he thinks something nefarious is happening, or he's going to piece it together and immediately figure out Clark Kent is Superman. We're stupid for not knowing this our entire lives. That same son, the guy who had disappeared and burned down the fundraiser, he ends up back at Morgan Edge's, I guess some kind of lab. I don't know if it's Edge's lab. I assume it's Edge's lab, with the assistant woman who we know is using X-Kryptonite. And Lois's newspaper boss from Smallville, the new little mousy chick who's really cute, she goes to spy on them, and she calls Lois to let her know what's going on, which causes Clark to show up, and he fights the freshly, I guess, powered up, previously missing son, whatever this dude is. They both get spied by Lex Luthor. Remember, Lex Luthor from another universe is just kind of like perusing around here doing stuff. They both get spied by Luthor, but then before Luthor can get close enough to really see what's going on, the second guy kind of spontaneously combusts, which I guess is what they were trying to prevent with whatever treatment the assistant was giving him a little bit before that. And so Clark takes off, and Lex shows up to the scene with nobody there, just some ashes. Other reveals that we got from Lex Luthor about Lex Luthor in this was that he was married to Lois on his world, and that she was basically identical to the Lois that she is here, except that she married a different person, and that was him. It makes it kind of weird that he, through this episode, was starting to kind of get into her life, kind of introduce himself and things, and it makes it kind of weird. He's like getting kind of weird about that. He also definitely has no idea what Ed is up to. Likely isn't even aware of the name Morgan Edge. If he saw those two super people flying around, went to investigate it, and didn't immediately, know what was going on. He has no idea what Morgan Edge is up to. He doesn't know who that guy is, probably. He's not on his radar right now. I also think that if Clark didn't have Lois in his life on Lex's world, we could probably argue pretty fairly that Lois is the key in every universe. The whole thing in Justice League, how Lois was the key to saving things, potentially might be the key in whatever the Flashpoint thing is, depending on how that all kind of pans out. I think it could be pretty easily argued that, if any world that Superman goes evil, it's because he doesn't have Lois in his life, or he doesn't have Lois in his life, so he goes evil. Either way, chicken before the egg, which, by the way, was I won't go into that. The episode ends with Jordan walking home from Sarah's house after their whole discussion that they're just going to be friends, and he gets attacked by the kid from football, Tag, I think his name was. The kid from his football team who accidentally got superpowers based on the X-Kryptonite. And he was supposed to have gone off to some super kids school, right? That was what we were told. Potentially funded by Morgan Edge. I'm not really sure. I don't remember where we landed on with that. But he shows up, attacks Jordan, and asks what he did to him. Clearly, wherever they took him, things weren't going well. Potentially, they experimented on him more. Or he's just, broken out of wherever he was, and he's furious and wants to blame Jordan on this having happened because he possibly put 2 and 2 together. Somebody's got to tell him about X-Kryptonite before things go really poorly. And that wraps up my coverage of Superman and Lois episode 5. A little bit shorter, I think, than what I've usually been doing, but that's just fine. I'm really, like I said, I'm really enjoying what the show is doing, where it's been going. And I'm really hoping that it can kind of continue being good in the future. We're starting to see a little bit of the light sun versus the dark sun thing, but once again, it's not quite that simple. The situation is not quite that simple, so I don't think they're gonna quite do, light sun versus evil sun or anything like that. I think they're just gonna, I don't know. I like not knowing what they're gonna do because that means that they're probably doing a good job. But now moving on, we'll talk a little bit about some of the news that we had from this week. First off, we have Black Adam casting news. The big thing about that, I think the only new thing this week, was that Pierce Brosnan, of all people, was cast as Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate is, of course, a magical character. It makes a lot of sense that he's going to appear in this movie. They share a lot of their mythology, him and Black Adam and Shazam and all of that kind of magical part of the DCU. So that's really fun. Pierce Brosnan, never would have thought about that, never would have predicted it, but now that I see it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Pierce Brosnan is joining a cast that has, of course, Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam. We have Quintessa Swindle as the character Cyclone. We have Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher. And Aldous Hodge as Hawkman. Very, very curious about the Aldous Hodge Hawkman thing, particularly because if you're familiar with the Hawks, Hawkman and Hawkwoman, they are... their modern versions have been reborn multiple times through, the generations. So I'm really curious. I imagine this must be potentially a older version of Hawkman. They don't necessarily get reborn and the bodies that look the same. So it could be that they're saying this is what Hawkman of back in the day when Black Adam was first the ruler of Kondak. We could be seeing that Black Adam, we could be seeing that Hawkman, or we could be seeing a modern Hawkman. I'm not sure. I'm really curious about how they're going to handle it anyway. I would love to see them do this movie perfectly. In my mind, doing it perfectly includes the scene of him basically seeing his entire family and his city of Kondak being destroyed, which is how he kind of gets to the origin. It's his whole origin thing. So, I'm curious about this, and apparently this is supposed to be starting filming in the next couple of weeks. So they're really doing it. This has been such a long time coming. I feel like it wasn't going to happen, but it's happening. Where it's officially happening finally. Also in the DCU news, we have DC Films tapped the writer from movie Promising Young Woman to direct Zatanna as a movie. We weren't really sure if Zatanna and Batgirl were going to get movies or TV series. We're not really sure about Batgirl still, but Zatanna, it looks like, is getting a movie for DC Films. I don't know if that's going to be tied into HBO or what. But the writer's name is Emerald Fennell. She wrote Promising Young Woman, which was nominated for an Oscar. She was nominated this season. Or rather, I guess the Oscars haven't actually happened, so she's currently nominated. So that's really exciting. I have not seen Promising Young Woman myself. I plan to do that at some point in life. But for now, it just sounds like it's probably an excellent choice to go with somebody with that kind of head on their shoulders for a female-led superhero movie, especially a character like Zatanna, who is going to be a little bit of work to, I think, do her right. So really happy to see them putting the right foot forward on that project. Getting to the end here, we have the Disney Marvel movie premiere changes that they announced. Basically, Black Widow and Cruella are now going to premiere on Disney Plus at the same time that they'll be going to be premiering in theaters. They have a little bit of a date change. Cruella is going to be on May 28th, and Black Widow has been pushed back 2 months from its May date to July 7th. Or sorry, July 9th. It was May 7th. They will both be offered on Disney Plus for premiere access, which is, of course, the $30 rental fee when you get the movie for 3 months to watch as many times as you want, or it'll be movies. This move for Black Widow means that Shang-Chi has been pushed from July to September, unfortunately. However, they seem to still be doing him justice by keeping him in theaters only. And Eternals is still scheduled for November so far. Of course, none of this is taking into account the MCU shows that are going to be coming out all year long between now and then as well. And I just wanted to make a note on premiere access, because people seem to think that it's a bad idea and that it's dumb. Here's the thing about premiere access. This is all also not even mentioning the fact that we're still in part of a pandemic here, and a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable going to the movie theaters, and would much rather stay home. And you still can go to theaters if they're open in your area. It's nobody telling you have to pay the $30. You can find a theater that does it and go. But anyway, you'd have to pay at least $10 for a movie ticket to see this movie in a crowded theater. If you have a partner, kids, or a family of any kind, the movie will run you at least $30 more if you're getting food. So in my mind, paying $30 to ultimately own a brand new, in-theaters release for 3 months after the purchase date to watch as many times as you want in the comfort of your location of choice with the people you choose and the snacks you like is actually a really good deal. Yeah, sure, you're already paying for their Disney Plus service, which, for me, just got raised to a whopping $7 a month, and includes Hulu and ESPN subscriptions, and also allows me to see the MCU TV properties and films and pre-release cinematic material anytime I want, anywhere, not to mention the new MCU stuff coming out on there every single week of 2021. But yeah, go ahead, keep on complaining that Disney is charging you too much for this. I know HBO isn't charging for their stuff, but I honestly feel like I don't know if that was a good decision or not. Finally here, my last thing I want to talk about, moving on from that, it's for me, it doesn't really affect me. I'd prefer to watch it at home anyway. Marvel Distribution. They have ended their long-term deal with Diamond Distribution for their comics and started a multi-deal year with Penguin Random House, which will start on October 1st, 2021. I had been wondering how they are still involved in Free Comic Book Day, which happens in August. That would be it, because they put the date for October, knowing that they still want to get in on Free Comic Book Day. DC, of course, won't be doing Free Comic Book Day unless they do it off their own dime. Diamond is the one who runs Free Comic Book Day, and DC split off from them last year. The reasoning for the split from Marvel is being cited as, quote, to create a sustainable, productive supply chain and enhanced infrastructure for Marvel publications that will benefit comics retailers and fans alike for years to come. And it also says it will, quote, enable independent booksellers to increase efficiency and profitability, end quotes. Based on that, I think that sounds like it's a good thing. A lot of issues with Diamond is that they mess things up. I know my local comic shops tend to have things get messed up from Diamond a lot. I don't know if that... It shouldn't have anything to do with DC leaving, because that makes less work for them, right? I don't know, but this is, Marvel has been with Diamond since 1977. Orders or retailers who want to order from Diamond can still do that, but Diamond will be getting their Marvel comics from Penguin at wholesale, so there's probably going to be an upcharge. DC was the first to break off, like I said, last year after the COVID shutdown, which broke their 23-year monopoly Diamond had on the comic distribution market. ultimate monopoly. There's, there's some other things, there's some people who don't use them, but it's scarce. It's ultimately a monopoly, especially having both of the big two, that was, and Image and all the indie stuff, from the main parts. Like, it was a monopoly. I do think that COVID shutdown was pointless, and that it is what is going to be their downfall. This could be the death of Diamond, as far as distribution for comics goes. They have a lot of other things that they have their fingers in, of course, like statues and figures, but as far as distribution, this may start to stumble their distribution even more than it's already been recently. I believe that COVID shutdown, they shut it down at, what was it? They shut it down at 5,000 cases and opened it back up at 500,000 cases. So yeah, similarly to how things were timed poorly and handled really poorly in the government in general, Diamond did not handle that very well at all. And so I think this is definitely directly due to that. I also want to note that Dan Buckley, the head of Marvel Entertainment, insists that comics are a core part of the Marvel universe and that they're continuing to invest in it, which is good to learn because, especially because AT&T, Warner DC's new, overlord, wants to do the exact opposite at DC. They want to rein down the comics department. So, seems to be really big on retailer success, which is exactly what we need right now, and seems to be really big on confirming that comics are going to be remaining a key part of Disney, Marvel, no matter what, going forward. So that's really nice in a world of uncertainties. I also think it's something noteworthy is that Penguin Random House Printing Services, or whatever it's called, is the first step into their direct market. They have already worked with DC, Archie Comics, IDW, Dark Horse, and Kodansha Comics, which are basically the manga comics, for book trade, which means paperbacks and things like that. They did all that for them. So my theory here is this is Penguin trying to slide into those companies' DMs, their direct marketing distribution. I thought it was funny, okay? I was going to end the episode here, but then it came out that there's this Suicide Squad trailer, so I'm going to talk about that now. I thought it was going to happen later today, but it's already out, so we're just going to go ahead and tack that on at the end of this and possibly discuss it more Monday once I, know for sure what I'm talking about and not just reacting to it. Basically, having just watched it for the first time now, I'm going to play this while I talk in the background a little bit quietly so nobody can hear it, hopefully, and get me in trouble. This seems to be, I guess you would call it a sequel. Possibly follow-up is a better term. I'm super not familiar with most of these characters. Obviously, we have some repeating ones from the previous Suicide Squad movie, like Harley Quinn, Rick Flag, good old, goddammit, I can't remember her name. And then we have some new ones, like here you have Idris Elba as Bloodshot. I definitely think, also talking about the characters, that the core... Oh, it's gonna have to load again. My phone internet is just terrible. The core people we're gonna see in this are definitely gonna be your Idris Elbas, your Rick Flags, your Harley Quinns, whatever John Cena, what's his name, everybody else who's in this, you have Sean Gunn as Mole Man or whatever the hell that thing is, which is probably going to be my favorite Sean Gunn role. We'll see. There's a lot of good ones. We'll see. You have Michael Rooker here. Basically, I think the core members are going to live, but everybody, there's so many of them he's got. He's got like 12 guys here or something. I think a lot of them, Sean Gunn's character's gonna die. What's his name from SNL's gonna die. Nathan Fillion's gonna die. She's gonna have a lot of fun blowing their heads off. Sharkman, fucking whatever his name is probably, I don't know. This is also gonna be definitely a brutal movie. I'm glad to see that. James Gunn definitely knows how to correctly utilize gore, as you have seen in previous movies. Most recommended by me would be, Brightburn. If you want to see a gory James Gunn movie, watch Brightburn. So this is interesting. We've obviously seen his work on Guardians of the Galaxy. He seems to be putting in a bit of obviously his humor, his excellent taste in music. I like the song he put as "I'm a Fool to Do Your Dirty Work," whatever that song's actually called. I know the song, I just don't know the title. Obviously hilarious because they're the Suicide Squad, and what do? They do, I almost had her name. Amanda something. I want to say Palmer. That's an artist. Amanda something, whatever her name is. She's got the bombs in their heads. She's going to be blowing off a lot of people's heads. I also am really excited to see Harley Quinn with the black hair. I think my first thing that I said after finishing Birds of Prey was, all right, I want Harley Quinn with black hair now. You have, the traditional blue and red that she always has, sometimes pink and teal, whatever it may be. Sorry about the plane. But when we finished that, I felt like the appropriate next phase for Harley Quinn's look is to have the black and red hair. And here she is with the black and red hair. Really, really excited for that. It looks like I was curious, Harley Quinn directed and written by James Gunn, how that was going to be, and it looks like he has a pretty good grasp on her based on these couple of clips of her speaking. I think this is going to be really good. Starro, of course, I have to mention Starro, the giant, the thing the guy refers to as a kaiju is, of course, Starro. Starro is a mind control space creature, and right now in the comics he's Jarro, because he got made miniature, and so he lives in a jar, and I think he's like Batman's little friend or something. I don't know, he may be large again because of the whole death metal, Infinite Crisis, Infinite Frontier, whatever we're at now, Infinite Frontiers thing. I'll have to look into a little bit more about the characters, see if I get any more theories or anything. Based on my twice now having watched through the trailer, it looks like there's somebody they're trying to sneak out who is that Hispanic woman, the Latina woman. Don't know who the character name for her, if she has one, if she's from the comics. I don't know any of that. Haven't looked into it. It's over my head right now. I'll look into it. I'll educate myself and tell you if there's anything to learn. Look like they're saving her. It's going to start with a lot of them, narrow it down to probably 4 or 5 max who survive in the end. I'm really looking forward to this. I don't think it's going to be along the lines of the last Suicide Squad movie. I think it's going to take the best parts of the last Suicide Squad movie and run from that, basically. It'll be great, and it's James Gunn, and he's pretty much, most things that he makes, oh gosh! Oh man, what is that movie? Better than Brightburn. The one, it was based off of a nightmare he had. I'm gonna Google this while I'm recording it, because I really need to figure it out. It was based off a nightmare that he had, years and years ago, and it takes place in an office. Let me see, there's Brightburn. Slither is a weird one too, if you ever watched Slither. Belko Experiment, that's what it's called. The Belko Experiment from 2016. And also you'll see movie 43 comes up on his resume. He did one of the scenes in that. He didn't know anything about the rest of the movie. I think it was the period scene. I could be wrong. The Belko Experiment, that is an excellent goddamn movie. Oh my god. Definitely don't watch Brightburn. Watch the Belko Experiment. If you want to watch a good James Gunn movie that has horror and gore in it, watch the Belko Experiment. You will not. That is one, and it's nothing. There's a few scenes in Brightburn that'll make you probably want to turn away from the screen because it's kind of a little bit too much. Belko Experiment is awesome. I definitely watch that if you want to get a look at his gore and rated R type stuff. And that wraps up today's episode. Once again, the next episode will be coming on Monday, the 29th of March. It will be the last March episode, and it will be 11A. I think I'm somewhere around the 20 episode mark right now, so congratulations to me, I guess. If you want to find me online, I have a website, sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. It does have the Weebly extension because I don't pay for it. My Instagram is Anna with the Comics. My Twitter is Savage She-Geek because sensational was too many letters. If you have any kind of questions, comments, or anything, please let me know on whatever place you or rating, whatever you want to do. Let me know on whatever you listen to this on. This podcast is available on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So it's 4 different places you can listen to this on. If you do have anything to let me know, you can do that on any of those places, words. that wraps up this week's episode. I'll be back to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as comic book polls for the coming comic book week. I know there's some really excellent stuff coming out, so you don't want to miss that. And like usual, be sure to check in with your local comic book shop. I definitely do not cover anywhere near everything that comes out each week in comic books, or not even everything that's good. There's plenty of stuff that's really good in comics out there that I do not even touch on or mention. So be sure to show up to your local comic book shop, or email them, or call them. Whatever you can do to get in contact with them if you want to find out something else to read. Let them know what you like, and I can guarantee they will be happy to set you up with some comics that you will enjoy based on those recommendations. So do that. And if you have any kind of feedback or anything, of course, let me know. And be kind to your fellow citizens and human beings and living creatures. Otherwise, we will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend and stay sweaty.